So, have you ever had to deny yourself anything? You ever been denied about doing something? You know, something you wanted to do or something you wanted to have as a part of your life. You wanted to do it. Matter of fact, some of us every year probably around the time of the beginning of the year, the new year, we make resolutions. You know, and you might decide to go on a diet. And then what do? You deny yourself food. Or maybe you try to not be on social media as much. And so you deny the use of your phone. But whenever you think of the word deny, what do you think of? Denying yourself is one of those things that are kind of difficult to do. And we're going to actually talk about that today and why it's part of what we're doing this year as Be Rich. And as we do Be Rich this year, we're going to, again, like we said, do it a little differently because it actually has a great way to kind of bridge from what we celebrated last week, and we really celebrate every Sunday, and that's the resurrection of Jesus. But we always look to Him and what He was saying, what He was teaching, and what His standard was for our lives, especially for the church, because the church was something that He had a special plan for. He wanted to use us and still wants to use us in the world today. Why is that so important? Well, you see, I think a lot of times, and we use the word for here so much because we want everyone to know what we're for and not what we're against. Unfortunately, in the world today, the church has gotten a bad rap, I believe. I think it's heard that the church is always against something or whatever. And so it really takes some intentionality, something we have to do different to make sure that people know we're for them, just like Jesus was. Matter of fact, if we were to look at Jesus' life and the way that He actually interacted with people, the way that He came across them, maybe you'd think of it this way. Jesus liked people who were nothing like Him, and they liked Him back. You see, many times you saw Jesus interacting with people that were around Him, and people that He brought in and close to Him were people that were not religious. Matter of fact, they were people who were very far from God at times. And you saw them in the way that they interacted with Him. They really liked Him and wanted to be around Him. You take a lot of the stories that you see that Jesus when He interacted with people like Zacchaeus and Nicodemus and tax collectors, many tax collectors like Zacchaeus and His own disciple, Matthew. So He was always interacting with people, and when He would do this, they were usually people that were nothing like Him, but yet they seemed to like Him back. There was something about Him that drew them in, and it was really a lot of His message. And then we see Him live His life. He comes to that point where He lays down His life and dies, denies Himself even comfort or actually position. Jesus easily could have made His presence known as God, but as we read in Scripture, He actually gave up everyone seeing that, and He took on the form of a human. He took on a human body, and that body could die, and that body did die in the place of all of us. He stepped in and died for us so that we might have eternal life. And it wasn't just dying that did it. It actually was this incredible event, the resurrection, where Jesus actually came back from the dead. Matter of fact, the resurrection of Jesus started a movement that changed the world, and that movement is the church. That's what His whole plan was, is for the church to actually be this group of followers of Jesus that would come together and have an incredible plan of reaching out into the world and going to people that were nothing like them, so that they would see the love of Jesus and they would actually be attracted. Jesus would use that to attract them in and bring them to that point because the church was loving people the way Jesus did. So you may be wondering, if you're wondering, what is a church? A church is not a building. A church is not programs. A church is not a pastor or a group of pastors. It's not anything like that. Matter of fact, a church is a group of people. I want to give you this definition. A group of Jesus followers partnering in a local area to make a difference because of His message and mission. We've been placed right where we are. We came here to this place, and we are a part of this community, And we're here to make a difference for Him. And not that we are here for any other reason. Sometimes we get the focus on the wrong thing. And we believe that actually our job is to take care of each other, which it is. Please don't get me wrong. It's very important that we take care of each other. But one of the reasons why the church was placed in the world and that we have this mission and we have this leader, the resurrected Christ, to follow, that's what gives us the premise to go out and to actually make a difference in the community around us and wherever we are. That's what the early church did. If we looked at what the early church did, they did amazing things. I want to take you to Acts chapter 2 this morning, and I want you to see what they did. And a little later, you're going to hear Matt use this again to kind of pull us into how we might be able to actually act on this. But it goes like this. This is a passage of Scripture that happened right after Peter preached to a large crowd of people. And actually that day, 3,000 people put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ and actually wanted to be baptized that day. They wanted everyone to know that they had put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ alone for them to be saved or to have their sins forgiven, that they wanted to follow Jesus and let Him be the one that leads their life. And so when you read this passage of Scripture, you're going to find that this was something that was a result of them coming together and meeting. And so every time the church came together, this was the attitude that they had. It goes like this. All the believers were together and had everything in common. Right there is a miracle. Okay? That's a miracle in itself. You get a group of people together, and how many opinions do you have in a room? Count how many people you have, and that's how many opinions you have. All right? And some of them have two. That's in case the one they have is in agreement with somebody else, so they got to have one in the back pocket to pull out so they can disagree, right? At least that's what it seems to be these days. And actually, when they had everything in common, that meant that they had the one thing in common, and then that superseded everything else that they talked about. The one thing that they had in common was they believed that Jesus had died for them and that He rose again, and that He had given them a job to do. He had given them a commission. They were supposed to go out and do something with what they knew of Him. He had changed their lives. They were to go out and make sure people knew that He could change theirs as well. And so this whole idea of having something in common, I think many times the church has forgotten. We get into arguments over things that are silly. People all across the board. Now, thank goodness, you don't hear too much of that. At least I don't think so here. But in our world today, people and among the Big C church, at so many churches around, if we collectively thought about it, there is a lot of disagreement about what should happen, what we're supposed to be doing, all of that. When Jesus actually made it very simple. He did not make this hard. We make it hard. So when you hear of churches not getting along and all of this, and they don't, that church there and that church there, or the church I grew up in, or the church that I just left and, whatever, or I had trouble with, or things that I've heard about. I have friends that go to that church and they say it's, Why don't they have things in common? Because probably the people inside the church, the individuals, begin to put other things above the fact that Jesus Christ rose from the dead and gave us a job to do. So it goes on. Listen to what they did. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. You see, when they first started assembling and coming together, there were people who had come to Jerusalem, and they were there because they were there to celebrate the Passover. And as they were there, many of them found that the longer they stayed with the church and they were drawn to be with the church, then they started running out of money. Their debit cards were empty because they had not been around. I mean, it was so difficult for them to actually do this. And so many of them had need. Now, imagine this, but if we were to just ask the questions today, and we were all to collectively put in our needs in the middle, and then we said, all right, now collectively, how much do we all own? And we're going to sell everything we have, and we're going to meet all the needs within the church. What do you think the effect would be if we did something like that? There are people in this room that have crazy medical bills that they're dealing with. There are people in this room that have had misfortune, or they've lost a job, or they've had health issues, or something has happened to them. Can you imagine if the church responded the same way they did in the early days? You know? The church started selling things that we had, things that we didn't own. You know, I have a garage full of stuff that I've got to go through and figure out what to do with. I've got to figure it out because I'm actually going to try to park a car in there. And looking at that garage, it's full of stuff I have no idea where it came from. Some of it I wonder, what in the world, where did this happen? I put this one vase in there and then this lamp, and then all of a sudden there's like 3 more lamps. You know, it's like rabbits. I don't know if you're like me, but it's like, why do I have so much stuff? Why do I have stuff that I don't even use and that I store? Why do I have stuff that I store? I have an attic. And there's boxes in that attic, and I don't even know what's in them. You know? Why do we store stuff? Why do we have those kind of things? Why do we pull it all in? Maybe because we kind of love this world an awful lot. Matter of fact, not only did they do this, but the verses go on, and look at what it says. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They had church every day, okay? For those of you that have a hard time making it once a week, here's the deal. They loved being together so much. They saw God doing so much stuff. They saw Him accomplishing things that they couldn't do without Him. And when they came together, it just reminded them. It was as if every day was a reminder of the resurrection of Jesus. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And it goes on, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people, meaning that wherever they went and represented the resurrected Jesus, people were drawn in. People that were nothing like them. They were drawn into this. All the people. Favor with all the people. Not just favor within the church or the group of followers, but everyone that looked at them, everyone that observed them, everyone that saw them, they were like pulled in. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. I don't know about you, but I could do that every day. I could see people get saved every day. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful? The people you work with, you went in, and because of the influence of the church and because of the influence of Jesus in our lives, all of a sudden the people around were drawn. The people that are nothing like you, the people that maybe don't have as much in common with you, but they see something different, and then all of a sudden we're pulled in. They're pulled in because they say, I like what you've got. I like what's going on in your life. You got to take it to this question. How did they know this was the way the church should live? I mean, how did they know this? Because Jesus gave them the principle. Let me show you what the principle is. It comes from Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. And we're just going to look at 2 words today. But it says, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must what? Say the words. Deny themselves. This is a hard one. It's a hard one. And take up their cross and follow me. Now, we're going to next week talk about taking up a cross, and the next week talk about following Him. But today we talk about denying ourselves. And the verses go on. Listen to what it says. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. The idea is not about dying here. It's about laying your life down for God to use you and to be used by God to do whatever He puts in front of you. I think a lot of us miss opportunities. I know I do. I know I miss opportunities every day because I'm not necessarily hearing or watching or whatever because I'm so distracted. Anybody here distracted? Yeah. We've all got that problem at times. I take you back to the beginning of this verse where the phrase says, whoever wants to be my disciple must what? Deny themselves. That's critical. All right? It's critical that we understand that denying ourselves, and it doesn't mean that you have to go hungry every day. It doesn't mean, unless you see someone hungry and you're gorging on something, here's this, sack lunch full of whatever, that you brought from home, leftovers of lasagna from the night before. What is it about lasagna? It's always good the day after. You know? Oof. You know? And maybe, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the fact that, you have in your pocket a $20 bill, but you see someone scurrying, and they just went through the grocery line and their debit card was denied because it's a single mom who's got a one on the hip and one in the cart and one screaming because they want the candy bar in the rack, but mom doesn't have the money to buy it, and she's got about $19.72 on the card, but every time she swipes her debit card, it's denied, and she's going, I don't know what to do. I don't want, and you have a $20 bill that you could easily just pull out and just put it right there. Or you have a debit card that has more than that on it, and you go in and you can swipe that real quick, and you could take care of that person's need. You get my point? Denying yourself doesn't mean that you're actually having to never have any fun. I think many times, do you think you put 12 guys and Jesus together and they didn't ever have any fun? All right? Remember, 12 of them were sinners. So think about this. When we think about what denying yourself is giving up something you want to be for someone else. Something you want. And in our country, right now, it's all about the things we want, right? We end up making decisions about not doing something. When we think of denying ourselves, we think of denying something we want. See, the point is that many times we put ourselves so much in the front of things that we get in the way of God wanting to use us because we put our wants in front of others' needs. Jesus can actually use us in ways we never thought. And you might say, oh, but you don't know my life or anything. Now, let me just tell you something. God will use anyone. God will use anyone. I take this here. Denying yourself is giving up something you want. What do you want right now? What is something you want? To be for someone else? That's the concept. Can you lay aside who you are and what your wants are to meet the need of someone else, to see God work in your life? And then I want to take you one step further. Imagine something with me. Imagine the impact when the church, together, all of us, imagine the impact if we did this together and we give up what we want for what others need. Imagine giving up collectively here, giving up time. We just give up time enough to meet the needs of other people. Many times that's exactly what people see. Remember, Jesus liked people who were nothing like him, and they liked him back. Why? Because he was there to serve them. He was there to serve them, and they knew that. They saw that. Imagine if the church, imagine if Fair Creek, collectively, together, we denied something we wanted as individuals, but collectively we deny ourselves and we allow Jesus to use us, and we give up something that we want for something others need. I want you to see a few stories here of the last time we did Be Rich. And you're going to hear three guys give their stories of what it was like to do that. They tell it best of what it is to give of yourself. That's truly what denying ourselves is all about, is giving. So watch this story.
We had a project out in the country. We had a young lady that had family that lived with her, but needed some assistance with just getting the yard cleaned up and getting some decks kind of power washed and cleaned up. And we pulled a group together. We got to tear down a pool, which is pretty cool. That was going to take quite a long time, and it literally took 30 seconds with two people that pushed the right spots, and it all kind of collapsed, and all the water went everywhere. But it was a great opportunity just to pull people together. I view the opportunity to serve not just as an opportunity for myself, but an opportunity to connect with people you typically don't get to maybe connect with. And I think that that's one of the great parts about some of the things that we do with Fair Creek is our ability to be able to connect with people that maybe we never knew, were interested in possibly the same things. And I think that that just allows us to have just greater relationships.
For our project, we have a neighbor, Brittany, who lives next to us, and she has kids and had a backyard that was taken over with this tree that was on its side like this, taking up most of the backyard, pretty massive tree, and wanted to just help her out with some cleanup of her yard and get the tree out of the way. And we actually kind of wanted to do it for a while and just hadn't been able to kind of muster the resources to do it. So when the opportunity came up through the Give Serve Love campaign to ask for some help from the church body, we were excited to get a team together and be able to do that and help her out by getting that tree out of her way so her yard's a little more usable.
Our project was kind of like a 3-for-1 kind of deal, kind of a trifecta. We started off, there was a big yard cleanup part of it, fence mending, that kind of thing that we did, that we needed a big group of people for. So everybody, got together, a good group there, and just hauled stuff and, just a big mass effort. And then the second part of the project was kind of a basement cleanup, getting some things that, after, you're in a place for a long time, and, things store up, and you got things, and so it was nice to be able to help the homeowner just get the things that they didn't need anymore, and get those out of the basement, and, get that space cleaned up for her, that she could, use for other purposes. And then the last bit of the project, we had like just a complete, pretty much complete bathroom remodel. So it was fun. I'm a kind of a novice, handyman, so there was a lot of I'm pretty sure I can do most of this. We'll find out. I'll get help if I need it.
We were always having conversations. They were out there helping us through the project. I think that probably one of the coolest experiences for me is I went out one day in the fall by myself just to try to start painting the front patio and deck for them. And the granddaughter who lives with them brought me out a cup of homemade hot chocolate and just stood there and talked to me for a couple minutes about what I was doing and why we were out there. And she was very appreciative. And of course, I told her it was the best hot chocolate I ever had because in the moment it was. But yeah, it was those type of interactions were really cool. And to have a young person come out and be a little interested in what we were doing, I thought it was pretty cool. And
so kids are off school. I'm needing to help out. This is a good day. So, all right, kids, you're coming with. And so it was kind of fun. She got to experience my children. Luckily, it was a good day with my children, so it was a positive experience. But so that was some, fun interaction that, my whole family got to, get involved with.
Ours was limited, honestly. We, is our neighbor, and we, tried to connect. She tends to not come out a lot, and I think it was just a good opportunity to just kind of start to build a little bit of a bridge there.
in my opinion, I think it has everything to do with the whole premise of what we're trying to accomplish as a church. Our opportunity to connect, to be active participants in people's lives, to make impact every single day in the things that we do. I think that those are all, You Got Served is something that allows us to show us out there in the community, and again, make attachments to people that maybe we typically wouldn't have attachments with. And I do think that there is opportunity there. There's opportunity not just in those You Got Served projects, but other opportunities that maybe we see that maybe because we've done that You Got Served project that we think, hey, maybe we can pull a team together and do possibly something a little bit different than maybe that we never even thought of. So,
One thing I like the for aspect of this, it's for our neighbors and for helping out folks and doing all that. But I think a lot of it's for us too. I mean, not to sound selfish or anything, but just for us, give us that challenge. Some of us need to get outside of our comfort zone and maybe do something maybe we wouldn't have tried before, or committed to some time that we maybe sometimes have trouble committing to. but having these opportunities, puts it in our heart, and that hey, there's a need, and something needs to be done, and I need to sacrifice of myself to be for someone, because a lot of times it's easy to, write a check or do something and do this and like done, but for some of us, that time, time is difficult to commit to. So I think it's a good way to kind of challenge us.
I think it's sometimes not always easy, for at least it depends on personality. Yes, for some of us it's just easy to talk to everybody in a 10-block radius or something. But I know for me, I could be content to just pretty much stay in my house, unless I am trying to be a little more intentional. And so it's just a great way to help somebody else out. And there's just not that much more to it. And in most, there's going to be probably a lot of different projects, opportunities again, I imagine, as there were in the past. And so skill set's not likely to be a barrier. I'm sure there's a way to plug in, and if we're just willing, I think, to get them out and help, and many hands make light work. So for most of these projects, just being willing,
Not all of them require like wicked handyman skills. I mean, I don't have wicked handyman skills, and I still did some of the stuff that I needed to get done. But a lot of them just that you said, just an extra set of hands, and just showing up, being willing to be used for the kingdom is really all you need to do. I mean, someone there is going to show you what to do.
I'm Rob.
I'm Ben.
I'm Chad, and we're people for real people.